So yesterday, guys, I was on Instagram and I was scrolling like I usually do on Instagram Reels, and I saw a video from the Red Beard guy here. I do follow him on Instagram, personal Instagram, because he does make some interesting content regarding Pokemon and rating them all in terms of like an in-game sort of aspect, how strong they are, etc., etc. But yesterday, he uploaded a video about Gen 5, and I'm like, oh no. I saw the thumbnail, I was like, why do you hate Gen 5? I was like, oh, this is gonna be some Gen 5 slander or cooked. This is, and to be fair, I was thinking about it all day because I watched the video and I was like, damn, I really want to make a video on this because I just hear a lot of shit that I don't like. I am hearing a lot of slander towards Gen 5 in the big 2025, and I'm like, yeah, we need to sort this out. But either way, we're gonna be watching the video, going over it, and just go over my thoughts on it, because I was thinking about it all day while I was at work yesterday, and I got back home really late and I was too tired to even make a video on it. Plus I was doing some chaos shit, so I had no time to really record. I was too tired. But before we get into the video, if you guys do like the content that you see, subscribe to the channel, join the kingdom. We're on our way to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I want to thank you guys for getting us to 850 subscribers. We're so close, and like still just a bit further away. And also, since we're on Instagram, once we get to 1k subs on YouTube, I'll make a Toy Tanking Instagram just to, you know, post anything competitive related and stuff. But yeah, let's get into the video. We're not going to be watching on Instagram. He also has a YouTube, which is just easier to navigate because I have a navigation bar here to just scroll through the video to, you know, go back on certain points. But anyway, let's watch the video first, so you guys know, what do you call it, the context, basically. But yeah.
So yeah, I don't hate Gen 5, but it does have by far the worst Pokedex out of any game, only really challenged by Gen 2 or Gen 9. This comment said it really well. Not only is its entire dex a deliberate yet poor attempt at a Gen 1 reskin, but it also has a bottom 3 starter trio. And yeah, most of said reskins are direct downgrade. You've got arguably the worst regional rodent regional bird combo, then worse Rapidash, worse Golbat, worse Chansey, worse Machamp, worse fighting duo, worse Tauros, worst grass duo, worst trash monster, and worst object. Okay, no, those actually aren't too bad. So yeah, almost every Gen 5 Pokemon is just a Gen 1 reskin, but I will admit, some of them are better. Gigalith is a much better Golem, Musharma is a much better Hypno, Excadrill is a better Sandslash, and even though I hate on Gen 5, that doesn't mean it also doesn't contain some of my favorite Pokemon. And as I talked about in my Gen 5 Second Chance video, the games themselves are S tier, especially the remakes. Though to be fair, Gen 5 does have hands down the best sprite work out of any generation. So yeah.
All right. So yeah, that's the whole video. Obviously starts off very strong with some claims and you know, gives Gen 5 some flowers at the end. But it's not enough. It wasn't enough. Yeah, nah, it was not enough. Yeah, starting off strong like that, we're gonna get into it. We're gonna have to dissect everything. And I think the first point I want to get over is yeah, worst Pokedex out of any game, really challenged by Gen 2 or Gen 9. And when I heard this, I was like, question marks were appearing outside of my head, like they were actually manifesting into the material plane, because I'm just like, there's no way you genuinely believe Gen 5's dex is even on the level of Gen 2's. And again, I'm not even trying to hate on Gen 2, but ask pretty much any random Pokemon fan that actually keeps up with the games, or at least has experienced Gen 1 to Gen 5. No one is saying Gen 2's dex is better than Gen 5's. Like, either you're being incredibly disingenuous or you are the biggest Gen 5 hater on the planet. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, no one is saying Gen 2's dex is even better than Gen 5's. And to be fair, I'm not going to fight for Gen 9. Haven't played the games, didn't want to buy the games. But even from the way I've seen the Gen, I know what Pokemon are in Gen 9's decks. You have the whole ass Paradox Pokemon, you have the Legendaries, you have, like, you know, some other really cool Pokemon in Gen 9, which obviously every single generation has good Pokemon, but Gen 2, you're going to be looking hard and long. You're going to be looking hard and long to find really solid Pokemon that can even keep up with, like, any generation following Generation 2. So yeah, crazy statement to say regarding Gen 5's decks being on the level of Gen 2's. They're not even comparable. There's no way. But yeah, moving on to the next point.
This comment said really well. Not only
so yeah,
its entire dex a deliberate yet poor attempt at a
deliberate and poor attempt of a Gen 1 reskin. Well, to be fair, we'll continue with what Red Beard guy has to say, but this comment here as well, just another misguided soul. And to be fair, I'm not going to be changing anyone's mind here, even if I, disagree with what Red Bid guy says. It's not like he's going to change his opinion. I'm just here to say my opinion, and that's all that matters to me, innit? But yeah, let's read the comment here. Haven't played since Gen 1 now. We got another Gen 1 here. Oh god. Gen 1 disease is strong with these people. Pretty much anyone born before the year 2000 most likely has Gen 1 disease. These guys. To be fair, I don't want to say the older you are, the more likely you are to hate Gen 5, but the evidence doesn't lie. Who was hating on Gen 5 back in 2011? who was the majority? That's all I have to say. But yeah, haven't played since Gen 1. I also agree Gen 5 is easily the worst generation, and that's why it sold the worst. Yeah, if we were, doing metrics like that, yeah, you can use the argument of selling the least games means you're the worst generation, but it's not particularly a strong argument. But even nowadays, you're saying you see a lot of people on social media and that saying Gen 5 are some of the best games in the franchise. So I don't think anyone really cares that they sold the worst, because I still think Gen 5 has a lot more love put into it than the entirety of XY. Like, those games were just not finished. But anyway, not only is the Pokedex a Teamy version of Kanto Pokemon, it brought the least amount of improvements and features compared to previous gens. The Teamy version of Kanto Pokemon, a lot of Gen 1ers like to use this as a, attack against Gen 5, which I just find kind of funny, because they act like the entirety of the Gen 5 dex is just a Gen 1 reskin, where when that's just objectively false. So there's so many ideas in Gen 5 that Gen 1 doesn't even have. It just doesn't make any sense. They see the few inspirations that Gen 5 takes on the Gen 1 decks and just run with it and say, oh, it's just worse, my childhood Pokemon is just made worse in Gen 5, like Throw and Sork, these guys are just worse, Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan. But saying the whole dex is just a reskin, I'm pretty sure Gen 5's legendary Pokemon triples the amount that are in Generation 1. And none of them are even close to being inspired by any Gen 1 Pokemon. Are you trying to tell me Reshiram and Zekrom are in Gen 1, guys? Like, come on now. Like, let's look at this list here. Might have to zoom in a bit slightly on this one. But, yeah, there's literally no evolutions in Gen 5. And obviously, you're probably going to be thinking, why am I taking it so literally? I'm taking it literally because that's what they've actually said. They said either the entire dex or they said most of the dex. And most implies a majority. The majority of Gen 5 Pokemon are not Gen 1 reskins. That's just how it is. And even some of the ones that are reskins are, again, this is subjective, but some of them are even just better than the Gen 1 decks. But again, if you want to go band for band with every single, if you want to go band for band Gen 1 Pokemon to Gen 5 Pokemon, I still think Gen 5 is clearing the Kanto decks. I'm sorry, guys. Like, if you don't agree with that, fair enough. But, Gen 1, even though the OG 151, yeah, I just think Gen 5 has a stronger dex, man. Even in terms of playthrough, in terms of just design, in terms of just how strong they are as general Pokemon, I think Gen 5 just clears. But yeah, and then let's not talk about how bad the starter trio is. If not for Contrary, Superior would be even less relevant Meganium. I'm sorry to say that outside of Meganium's Gen 2, like Gold, Silver, Crystal, sort of, like Meganium still sucks. Like, Superior actually still has decent stats for you to get here, like through the Gen 1, the Gen 5 playthrough. Like, it might not be a strong Pokemon, but it's fast and has annoying ass moves. Like, Meganium, unfortunately, doesn't really, like, they're both comparable in terms of damage output. Like, they're not strong Pokemon, but Meganium is just kind of too slow, and Serp is actually kind of fast. And like, yeah, contrary, like Meganium didn't get anything. Like, Serp is actually loved, but I still believe that no Contrary Serp, they'll both be like ZU bandits. Like, they would not be good Pokemon even in this current generation. But I could see a niche for Superior and PU without Contrary, realistically, because Glare is still a very annoying move to deal with. But yeah, they'll be as bad as each other, to be honest. But yeah, again, like, the meat of the pie here was the fact that calling the Pokedex the Temu version of Kanto, which is just not true. But yeah.
But it also has a bottom.
Again, I won't like debate anyone that wants to say Gen 5 has the worst starters, but let's just like bottom three. Like let's just remember that Gen 6's starters are just carried by Greninja. Like no one speaks about how sick Chestnut is, no one speaks about how sick Delphox is. It's literally Greninja, Greninja, Greninja. Like that at least you could balance out the Gen 5 starter trio and be like, you have your Samurott fans, you have your Superior fans. Embo gets a bit more flack, but you still have fans of that. But no one is glazing Chestnut or Delphox. That's all I'm saying, man. Maybe if you want to add Gen 6 into the bottom three starter trio, fair enough. But, that's all I have to say regarding that.
And yeah, most of said reskins are direct down.
Most of...
arguably the
yes,
worst
okay, cool.
Regional rodent.
Worst regional rodent, worst regional bird. I think bro forgot Gen 7 and Gen 8 exists, bro, because Greedent and Gumshoes, these guys are fighting for the worst allegations for sure. Now, I'm not gonna act like I'm a Watchog defender. I really don't care about this one, but Watchog had aura, in Black and White 1 when you were fighting Lenora's team. That guy with the retaliate, like that was the most threatening time you ever saw Watchog in the entire franchise, and I don't think Greedent or Gumshoes ever even had that aura. Even Gumshoes as a totem, was it even a totem Pokemon? I think it was. Yeah, it was in Pokemon Sun and Moon. It was, but it didn't have aura like Watchog, man. Like Watchog in Gen 5 had aura, man. And then in terms of Unpheasant, we just made an Unpheasant video not too long ago. That I'm hearing some slander on my bird's name. Now, again, Unpheasant isn't the strongest regional bird, but it's not Fearow. Like, people forget that Pidgeot and Fearow are from the same generation, and no one even mentioned Fearow. Fearow is still a regional bird as well, bro. You can catch Spearow as early as you can catch Pidgey, bro. So again, Gen 1 has two Pokemon, Pidgeot and Fearow, and to be fair, Pidgeot, I have nothing to say about Pidgeot. It has a Mega Evolution, so it's kind of just up there in terms of the stocks. It also has anime stocks as well, but Ash also owned the Unpheasant. And to be fair, did not have the aura that Pidgeot and Pidgeotto had. But again, like, Fearow is actually worse than Unpheasant. Like, they're both just pretty bad, but Unpheasant is better than Fearow. And then you also have to remember, to be fair, Noctowl also has some aura. Like, Unpheasant is not up there, which is a shame, but saying worst regional bird, I don't know, that still belongs to Fearow in my opinion. And then Watchog is not worse than Greedent or Gumshoes in my opinion. But yeah. Okay, Fez.
Bird combo. Then worst
Rapidash. This pained me a lot. This is probably the most painful part of the video that I watched, because Zebstrika, if you guys didn't know, is my favorite electric type Pokemon. I've always loved its design. I felt like Gen 5 was the starting point for the franchise to like move into modern sort of design philosophy, and I think Zebstrika kind of embodies that perfectly, because when you're comparing it to its cheap inspiration, even if you want to question, like, I don't even think Zebstrika is even inspired by Rapidash, just because they're horse-like Pokemon. But again, yeah, I don't know, like, what the glaze is on Rapidash or why people even like this Pokemon. Like, it's not even the most memorable fire type from the generation that is in. Like, you have Moltres, you have Charizard, you have Ninetales, you have Magma, you have a Flareon. Like, Rapidash is literally at the bottom, right? Rapidash will not be the first Pokemon you think about when you're like, it would not even be the second Pokemon people mention when it comes to Gen 1 fire types. And to be fair, like, let's not act like Rapidash has a crazy design. It is literally a horse with a horn with just fire. Like, I guess that just activates the neurons in the Gen 1ers. But at least Zebstrika, like, I'm just happy they didn't just get a PNG of a horse and of a zebra. Actually, why am I saying it like an American? Am I American? Cause you didn't just get a PNG of a zebra and just added like the two electric mains. At least Zebstrika's design, you can tell is obviously inspired by an animal, like a real life animal, but we're gonna make our own sort of design with it. You have like the lightning shaped stripes, you have the lightning shaped mane, the lightning shaped tail, and it is called the lightning bolt, the thunderbolt Pokemon, so you could obviously see its design is there. But yeah, calling Zebstrika a worse Rapidash, worse how exactly? Because the design is obviously just better, and even battle prowess wise, like, fair enough, like, Rapidash has gotten some buffs, like it got Swords Dance in Gen 8, it has high horsepower, it has decent coverage. They also have the same attack, and Zeb Striker's faster. I think Zeb Striker is put down by the fact that it's a physical electric type, and those guys never really succeed unless there's Zero Aura, So, Zeb Striker is let down more by its typing and its category as a physical electric. More than anything else, because physical fires can, survive. They can, thrive. You have Flare Blitz, Stab, and you also have setup on Rapidash. But I obviously don't agree with this whatsoever. Rapidash is a pretty average Pokemon, design wise and battle wise.
Worst Golbat.
Worst Golbat, comparing to Swoobat. Now, if you want to compare the entire line, fair enough, Crobat is obviously clearing Swoobat very easily, but comparing a not fully evolved one to one that is actually gonna is Golbat even good in its day? Golbat is not good in Red and Blue, bro. Like, again, this is a Pokemon that's genuinely just a non-fully evolved Pokemon. Even if you wanted to get into Fire Red and Leaf Green, Golbat again is not a fully evolved Pokemon in those games. You can get Crobat in that game, and yeah, like comparing Golbat to Swoobat, like that's not even comparable, bro. Like, Swoobat is actually a relevant Pokemon, despite the fact it's not the best Pokemon. Still has pretty useful abilities, has good damage output, is fast in terms of the Gen 5 decks. If you want to, again, say design, yeah, like, maybe Golbat's more memorable, but, like, again, like, Swoobat is objectively the better Pokemon.
Worst
Chansey. Like, I'm not fighting this fight, man. Say what you want about Ordino, man. I don't care. I don't care about Ordino at all. Chansey is the better Pokemon. I'll say that. I won't concede on this.
Worst
Machamp. Yeah, I mean, I like Conkeldurr, man. I think I prefer Conkeldurr over Machamp. They're both quite solid fighting type Pokemon. Again, I'm not going to get onto you for saying that.
Worst
fighting duo. Sork's my favorite fighting type. I do like Hitmonlee a lot, to be fair. But yeah, a lot of people don't like these guys. I will concede on that as well.
Worst
Tauros. Worst Tauros versus Boof. I've always preferred Bouffalant, to be honest. Tauros does have that aura, especially in Gen 1, where it's one of the best Pokemon. But Bouffalant, like, fair enough. I have nothing to say. I do prefer Bouffalant. Worst grass duo here. I think they're neck and neck, to be honest. I do like Victory Bell. Don't really care too much for Vileplume, but Whimsicott and Lilligant are quite solid Pokemon in their own right. Whimsicott especially still being relevant to this day in the official competitive Pokemon format of VGC. So yeah, give and take.
Worst grass duo.
Worst trash duo. Hey, I'm not gonna act like I'm the biggest Garbodor fan, but Mach is really just simple design compared to Garbodor. And if you think about, like, to be fair, they're both just based on, toxic waste and stuff. Like, but Garbodor is more thematic to the region. At least, universe based on New York, America, there's a lot of trash. So trash bags, it works from a thematic standpoint. Mach, there isn't really anywhere, like, obviously Kanto is based on Kanto in Japan, but Mach is just a slime monster. Of course, this is probably just biased from the anime, to be fair. Ash didn't own a Garbodor, he owned a Mach. So, I'm just saying, if Ash didn't own a Mach, would Mach really be as hype as, some people, find it to be? I don't know. Probably not.
Monster. And worst object.
And then, well, at least he concedes on the object Pokemon, because you really can't say Vanillux is worse than a freaking ball. You really cannot say that. And then in terms of Magneton, again, like, the line got completed in Generation 4, but if you're comparing, again, a non-fully evolved Pokemon to a fully evolved Pokemon like Klinklang, which coincidentally is also my favorite steel type ever, yeah, they're not even close. These two obviously blow these guys out of the water. But yeah, other than the Monko comparisons, like, again, is more opinionated, but Zeb Striker being a worse Rapidash, that is just hilarious. But yeah, in terms of anything else, I think so. Yeah, almost every
Pokemon is just a Gen.
Again, just another hyperbolic statement, a superlative statement. Almost, most. Yeah, again, just false, but yeah.
Reskin, but I will admit some of them are better.
Well, yeah, this is where Gigalith is a better Golem. Yeah, favorite rock type here. Clears. I love both of these guys, to be fair. I've always been a fan of Golem, but Gigalith is better.
Musharna.
Yeah, this is not even close. Musharna is better than Hypno. Escadrille is better. Sandslash. He hesitated there a little bit, but Sandslash is not him. Sandslash does not have that aura. And then the rest of the Gen 5 decks. This is the Gen, bro. So many of these guys are good. So many of these guys are good, man.
I hate on Gen 5. That doesn't mean it also doesn't contain some of my favorite Pokemon.
Yeah,
and
Fez.
Talked about
but yeah, and he willingly calls himself a Gen 1er. Like, what do I have to say? Like, the argument just writes itself, unfortunately. Like, in his title video, Gen 1er. That's all I have to say. That's all I have to say. But yeah, thank you for saying Black and White and Black and White 2 are ST games. That is obviously no contest. Some of the best story in the game. Some of the best games in general, post-game content, even in Black and White 1, Black and White 2 with the Pokemon World Tournament and stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much the end of his video because, again, the rest is positive stuff to say about Gen 5. But before this video ends, because I've already said all I needed to say, yeah, Gen 5's decks, really strong decks of Pokemon, Crocodile, Zebstrika, you have Reuniclus, even the fossils. I think the fossils in Gen 1 versus the fossils in Gen 5, from a design standpoint, I think the Gen 5 one's clear, but overall they're all just solid Pokemon. The legendaries are good. Zoroark, Golurk, Hydreigon, Genesect, Meloetta, Victini, Darmanitan. So many standout picks in Generation 5, and versus Generation 1, I like some of these guys, but a lot of them aren't doing much for me. Like, I can name Nidoking, Arcanine, Alakazam, Gengar, Golem, Kingler, Rhydon. But again, like, if I was to just list, like, Pokemon I genuinely like from each, like, generation, I'm getting a lot more from here than here. But yeah, that's all I have to say. At the end of the day, this is not a hate video. This is just me professing my love for Gen 5 and going over, like, again, have some criticism, but I do not believe saying most of the Gen 5 decks being a Gen 1 reskin is a good argument because, again, it's just a false statement in my opinion. But at the end of the day, you're entitled to your opinion. If you don't like Gen 5, you don't like Gen 5. If you like Gen 5 like myself, you're up there. You're just up there. Well, yeah, let me know down below if you guys agree or disagree with what I have to say, or if you agree or disagree with what Red Beard guy over here has to say about Generation 5. Again, it wasn't all negative, so I'm not even getting onto him like that. I just have to go over the video and say my piece on it, innit? Because I'm allowed to have an opinion on anything, innit? So, yeah, thanks for watching this video, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.